Well, that was some interesting stories from Jeremy last week. Captain Jeremy Spain, U.S. Army, Chaplain, I don't know, is it Corps, Division, Battalion?
He's a battalion.
He's a battalion guy?
Chaplain.
Yeah. And
or is it brigade?
I don't know, but...
I worked for the Army for years. I used to have that in, automatic.
I thought he shared some really interesting stories about leadership and how, he wants to be a chaplain in the field with the men under dress. Not him under dress, the men are under dress.
Yeah, and there's a lot of times when soldiers are under duress. There's a lot happening in their lives. They're young, they're first time, away from home.
Away from their spouse, maybe.
Well, sometimes the spouse, marriage can be part of the problems of them. Some of them, kind of rush into marriage sometimes, and
sure,
because they're lonely or other reasons, and I mean, those first few years in the Army are tough on a lot of soldiers.
Sure.
And then there's deployments, and you see some stuff. And then a lot of these soldiers have seen a lot of stuff. Yeah.
So we'll see what Jeremy says about all that tonight.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Third Chair. I'm Peter, that's Doug, and we are here with Captain Jeremy Spain. Jeremy, thank you for being with us here again this week. This is our year-end episode. And so as we head into a new year, I thought I would throw you some questions to get people thinking, not exactly about New Year's resolutions, but perhaps how they might look at the coming up year a little bit differently.
Yeah, so, he's had time to think about this because we've held him and Doug in the basement for the last week.
Yeah. So in pre-production, I had talked to you about some things that were on your heart to talk about, and you mentioned one idea, the whole idea of promotion and letting go. And I don't want to put words in your mouth. I'm assuming you're talking about maybe people worried about getting their next promotion and being able to let go about that and still live your life in peace. So again, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but tell us what you're thinking about with that.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me back, guys. I really appreciate it, and grateful for you too and what you all bring. I think where promotion and just letting go came from is I don't want to be driven by making the next rank. I don't want to be driven by having to promote, just keep promoting up and up the structure. If promotion happens, that's great, but maybe it's not God's will for me to promote. Maybe it's God's will for me to take a different direction. And so I want to be able to hold things out with a holy indifference. And I know, Peter, me and you have talked about this at various times, but just being able to hold all of our choices in life out with this holy indifference. We often think of indifference as kind of a negative thing, like, I'm just indifferent to it, like I don't really have an opinion one way or another, or a desire to do one thing or another. But my greater desire is actually to follow God's will and to be in submission to what He thinks is best for me. And so when I'm desiring promotion and I'm only working towards promotion, then God's will may not necessarily be the highest ideal that I'm holding up. It's that promotion. But when I have this holy indifference, it's saying, God, I'm indifferent to these because I desire you and what you want for me. And I'm trusting you and your will and your goodness to take care of me, whatever may come for me in the future. So, last week we talked about being a chaplain, and, I'm a captain. So, I have 8 to 10 years really till I look at making major. I don't know if I'll make major. I don't know what's in store for me, but that's a long ways down the road. But even when I get there, I want to be in this space of just holding it indifferently, like, God, your will be done. And I know that you are good. I know that you are loving. I know that you will take care of me. If I don't make major, that's okay. Because I know what's coming next will be okay.
How do you reconcile that with the fact, though, that in life, to some extent, we have to set goals. We have to fill out application forms. I don't hear you saying you shouldn't apply and try to better yourself. Or am I reading you wrong? What do you think about that?
No, I think you're right. I mean, it's healthy to set goals, but we can be so driven by goals that we lose sight of who's ultimately in control. You know, as a pastor, as a Christian, I believe God is ultimately in control. I want to set goals and I want to achieve things in life too, but it's when we elevate those goals and when we elevate those desires above God, where God no longer takes first place in our lives, that's where we get in trouble. Mm-hmm. That's where we start to lose it when I don't make major, and if major is my only goal, and I'm not concerned about God's will for my life, and if I don't make major, guess what? Life is gonna suck.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be depressed. I'm gonna lose it mentally, emotionally, spiritually. I'm gonna question God's existence because ultimately I wanted that. But if we hold it with a little bit looser, yeah, we still plan for it. We still move towards that because that's healthy too. And I think there's nothing wrong with wanting to promote, but it's the place, it's where we place it that I think is important.
I mean, the other side of that coin that I've seen is people that literally like sit there and like don't do anything. Oh, God's going to provide. You know, well, have you filled out an application form? No. Have you updated your resume? No. Have you even applied for anything anywhere? No. But He's going to provide. I'm just going to sit here and wait because I'm a man of faith. I think that sort of approach also can be a little bit problematic.
Exactly. Because, you know, I think slothfulness can be a sin, if we want to call it slothfulness. We have to do our share, and we have to do our part as well.
I read a joke on that this week. The guy is praying to God and says, "God, let me win the lottery," which is kind of the easy way to make money. It happens to you.
Yeah. Oh, the lottery!
And he prays for weeks, and he says, and finally, he says, "God, I'm mad at you because I prayed for 6 weeks and I didn't win the lottery." And God talks to him, and He says, "You should at least buy a ticket."
You should at least buy a ticket.
So I mean, you have to meet these goals. Yeah, you got to meet God halfway, and you got to work hard so you'll be prepared. And that's part of what He does this for, is to prepare you for what challenges you're going to have in the future.
Absolutely. So here's another one that you had talked to us about. Having faith with the potential of World War III. How do we live our life? I lived through Y2K. I bought this big assault rifle with this giant Chinese bayonet, and I was ready December 31st, 2000 when Y2K was supposed to happen. You know, looking back, I don't know that I had a lot of faith that things were going to be okay. So what are your thoughts on that? Having faith when we think, you know, perhaps the world is going to end or a war could occur?
Yeah, you know, I was thinking with that as a chaplain on active duty. You know, there's a lot of things happening in the world, and we don't quite know what the end result's going to be. You know, we don't know who's going to lead us down a path where we do end up in World War III. And I might be in the midst of that battle, in the midst of that war, you know, and I look back to World War II or World War I, and, you know, these men, at least in that time, women today as well, you know, they spent 5 years in war, and they seen atrocities. They seen things that we just can't even imagine. Well, maybe we can imagine them because we have Hollywood now, but just things that would just jar us. And how did they maintain some sense of sanity and some sense of faith or resiliency in the midst of that? And I think it starts with us building in resiliency into like our rhythms of life, our ways of life, reflecting on our purpose, our calling, our reason for existence, the goodness of God. I think this is true across the board. Whenever we're going through hard times, especially suffering, we need to reflect on these things because the world will easily get us sidetracked and our focus off of God. So reminding ourselves and reflecting on those things, purpose, goodness of God, reason for existence, his love for us, having faith is what's going to sustain us. I like to quote a lot to my soldiers here who are going through hard times for various reasons, but Paul says in one of his writings that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance produces character, and character produces hope. And it's the situations that we find ourselves in that produce character in us, for good or for ill. Mm-hmm. And staring down at like war and going into World War III, God willing that never happens, there's going to be situations that we're going to be in that are going to form us. Mm-hmm. And we need to have the faith in those times to be formed into a person who has character, who has hope, who has faith, and who doesn't lose sight of those things.
So we're going to hold that thought, and when we come back, we're going to ask you the question: how to develop spiritual resiliency, hunting for the good stuff, when we come right back. Welcome back to the third chair. There is Doug still celebrating the 12 days of Christmas, even though we're at the year end, and we have
Christmas
Chaplain Jeremy
lasts
Spain.
a long time in my mind.
Well, I always learned that song, on the first day of Christmas, like there was like 12 days of Christmas. But anyways,
let's not go back to Day of the Dove, 12 Days of Christmas again.
Oh, that was a classic song. We should play that sometime.
And Jeremy was there helping us sing.
That's right. So, in church, there's all these kind of special courses and workshops and get-togethers about, renovare and doing all these things. What have you learned about developing spiritual resiliency, and how do you personally find those nuggets of truth that have helped you?
Yeah. Well, spiritual resiliency is really a big topic in the Army. We want to cultivate strong, spiritually resilient soldiers because it is it's the ability to recover quickly from difficulties. To develop that toughness, to overcome, to bounce back when you experience adversity. And I think that's true across the board for any of us. One of the things that really struck me this year, as me and my family have been watching this TV series called Alone. Are you familiar with Alone? Where like 10 individuals go out into the wilderness and they're dropped off in the middle of nowhere.
I've heard of it.
They only have like 10 items with them, and they got to survive out there. They got to survive on their own, and they hunt, they fish, they got to build their own house or their cabin or like a little dwelling place for them to live in. And I noticed over and over and over and over again, these physically strong men, and there's some women down there too, they don't give in. because they become physically weak. They give in because they lose a sense of their purpose. They lose a sense of what they were out there to begin with. They start rationalizing in their mind all these reasons why they should go home. And what ends up happening? They go home. They give up. They end. They don't have that resiliency to keep going, to bounce back from those negative thoughts that, draw them home. There were some good things that probably drew them home. Absolutely. But they all set out there with a purpose. And they lost sight of that purpose, which ultimately led them to failing in the task that they set out to do, right? To win $500,000. But I think that's true for all of us across the board. When we try to build this resiliency, this ability to bounce out of those negative thought patterns that entrap us into thinking, I can't do it, I'm not good enough, I suck, or, I just want to give up, or whatever it is that holds us back. And I think there's certain things as Christians, as people of faith, as a chaplain who tries to encourage spirituality of all believers, or all soldiers, what is going to enable them to bounce out of that negative thought pattern, that negative rut? And it's going back to reminding them, why did they join the Army? Why are they here? What is their purpose? What gives them hope for the future? As a Christian, I want to connect them to the Bible and to God, and to help them cultivate within their own lives the spiritual disciplines that help them overcome those negative thought patterns, right? Like reflecting on Scripture, praying, going to church, connecting with other believers so that you can be encouraged and equipped and uplifted to have other people walk alongside you. And you don't even need to be another person. You are another believer. You could just be another person to walk alongside.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I heard an ex-Navy SEAL write something on resiliency, and he said sometimes a mantra is better than a manifesto, meaning sometimes people need short snippets that they can recall and think about and apply quickly, rather than trying to recall a long diatribe on a topic. Have you seen that, or do you think there's merit to that sort of idea?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know about a mantra. There are certain mantras that work, that help people to bounce back. I think of maybe for instance, just counting your blessings every day.
Yeah.
Or blessings that you want to just give thanks to God. One of the things that we do in the Army is we have these master resiliency trainings that help teach soldiers how to be resilient. And one of the things there's like 12 of them. I haven't been through this training, so I don't know all of the 12. But one of them is saying, hunt the good stuff. Hunt the good stuff. Find out what is good, and then give thanks for it. And focus on it. Stop thinking about the negative. Stop thinking about the things that suck.
Yeah.
Because that negative thought pattern just goes over and over and over, and you just get stuck there. But if you start hunting the good stuff, that rewires the brain, and then you think about them, and then you try to feel the experiences that gives you, that rewires the brain. And then you get out of that rut, and then life actually gets better. I heard an interesting statistic the other day about marriages. A lot of people in marriage, they might give up, after 5 years, right? They're no longer happy. They're no longer, they no longer enjoy being around their spouses for whatever reason. But a large percentage of couples, if they can just push through that initial lack of joy and desire to be around their spouses, after 5 years, that returns.
Mm-hmm.
But pushing through.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's a little bit different than finding the good stuff. But I think, finding the good stuff is important. But just pushing through.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, I think you're right.
So Jeremy, one of the things you mentioned before the show was competing against only yourself to improve. Can you explain that to us a little?
Yeah, I don't know where I first heard this at, but one of the things that has really stuck out with me here is, I know this, and I've known this for a long time, that I have the tendency to compare myself to others. It's like one of the greatest sins that I do. Like I compare myself to that person, to that person, to that person. It's not everybody, but maybe to other pastors, maybe to other chaplains. And I look at them, I'm like, what's so great about them? How come they have so many people show up at their event? How come they can preach so well? Why can't I? And then I feel a bunch of shame and guilt, and I get all depressive, and it's just not good.
All of us do that.
What's that?
All of us do that.
I think we all do that to some extent, but I think some people do it more than others.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it turns negative for me, right? And it gets me all depressed, and then I don't celebrate the uniqueness that I bring and the good things that I bring, and I'm not hunting the good stuff within myself and saying thank you, God, for making me me. So I've heard over this last year that we shouldn't be comparing ourselves to other people. We shouldn't be competing against other people or competing against other chaplains. Who should we be competing against? We should be competing against ourselves. Like, we want to be the best person we can be. So today, I'm just trying to be better than the person that I was yesterday. Next year, as we're talking about setting goals and stuff, I just want to be a better person next year than I was this year. But it's just one day at a time, So I'm competing against myself to become a better self. Not against other people. Not comparing myself. That frees me up to improve, I think, in a healthy way instead of an unhealthy way.
And then maybe if somebody is a better preacher, you might look at them instead of saying, why does he get to do that? Maybe it's, well, how is he doing it? So maybe I could try some of his things,
Yeah, I think it opens you to start thinking a little bit more creatively about those people that you do find like, hey, I would like to be like them. What do they do that is so encouraging instead of like trying to be them? There's a difference in trying to be them and just learning from them. And I think if you stop competing against them, you can actually enjoy them for who they are and what they bring. And you might actually be able to learn and apply things that you wouldn't have if you were so caught up in the anxiety and shame and just negative feelings all the time of hurting yourself.
Well, I agree. And we're going to take a break. Hi, Peter and Doug here from the Third Chair. We're looking for a win-win situation. We want to keep these videos put up on a weekly basis, and we want to help you succeed with your business adventure.
And we've brought up as a show a lot of important issues that people are interested in, and we brought up a lot of local actors and artists and bringing them forward, which helps them as well as our audience members in finding some of these things.
So there is an email on the screen. Send us a note if you're interested in knowing about some of our sponsorship packages.
Welcome back, and Peter is here.
Happy New Year!
Oh, good.
Not yet. That's next week.
I know, that's next
Well,
week.
next week will be New Year, but we're almost ready to celebrate it.
I'm still happy.
And still happy. I'm still married from
Well, you've
Christmas.
been stuck in this basement for a week, so.
I'm happy.
Oh, Doug, you know some of the presents you got? Yeah, Peter and I were down here by ourselves this week.
Reading the Halloween candy.
There's
not much of it left.
Some of your presents you got for Christmas aren't in the same shape.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't deserve any. I just got coal.
You know, Doug gave me a great, was it birthday or Christmas, the dad joke book? That was so good for me. Yeah, he gave me this great dad joke book. I've used it so many times.
Regretted it ever since.
I gave my son-in-law that. By the way, Jeremy, I'm going to be a granddad, or by the time this airs, I will be a granddad finally.
Congratulations. That's great news.
So Jeremy,
Oh,
when you look at this goal to compete against yourself and to improve, do you ever think about like your time in the Navy? You know, when you weren't happy in life, and look at where you're at now, and saying, you know, it's been a long journey, but how, do you think it's been worth it, and how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think there's so much goodness when you look back over time and you see the different places in life that you're just so thankful for, like how that changed and how you became better. You know, in Scripture, you know, God is always reminding the Israelites to reflect back on the things that He did for them, to remember those past acts. And I think when we look back at our own lives in the dark places and in the places where God stepped in and helped us, where we maybe did something that made us better, we made a decision that was good. It's good to think back over those, and just, that's a blessing, right? So we're counting our blessings. So we're not just counting, oh, how did that change from yesterday to today or last year? But, you know, looking back over time is good. And is encouraging, and it shows us progress. And yeah, for me, I really enjoy, I'm really glad that I am who I am today.
I remember when you moved here from San Diego and you're taking over a small church, and I mean, there was some risk of moving here, and
Yeah.
I remember that, and I was like, wow, you know, but you know, that was just part of your journey.
Right. And I think every part of our journey shapes us into the people who we are today. So, you know, coming there shaped and formed me somehow. Like we were just talking about, that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance produces character. And, you know, suffering comes in all different ways. It wasn't that I suffered through anything difficult too much, but you guys know some of my story by, you know, with crossover and becoming a priest, and just the whole story there. There was some suffering and some anxiety and some, you know, like, could have went all kinds of different ways.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that produced, for me, a better character.
Mm-hmm.
Person than I was then, you know. Not saying that I was a bad person then, you know, but just in ways that maybe I needed to be sharpened a little bit. Maybe some of those rougher edges needed to be taken off, you know. Maybe just one little part of my pinky needed to be smooth, you know, and that was that process.
I mean, I always kind of chuckle when I think about, you know, I know some of the parts of your application where you had to have like a general or whoever sign off on things like, yeah, he's good, and there were times I remember you saying like, I don't know what's going to happen, you know, it doesn't seem like it should be such a big thing, but it took way longer than it was supposed to, and there was some real kind of trying of your faith during that time.
Yeah, I agree. But who doesn't have trying times? I mean, I think we all have.
Yeah.
I think we all have things that we're waiting on. We're all waiting for something. We're all crying out to God for something. You know, we all want Him to do something for us. Mine was different, and I think how we respond in the waiting defines who we are and who we become tomorrow.
I mean, I think one of the most important things I learned as we talked about things in real time was this whole idea of the holy indifference. That was really kind of a revolutionary idea for me. Yeah.
One of you guys may have a question. I don't know.
Oh, just giving Jeremy a chance to think about it.
But Jeremy, how's your family doing now that you're in the Army? Do you get to spend the time you like with them?
Yeah, I get to spend a lot of time. I mean, there's, you know, Army life is pretty busy. It's pretty chaotic. You know, we're going to the field quite a bit. We just did a major rotation down to the Joint Readiness Training, JRTC training course. I don't know what the C stands for. It might be course, but that's like a month long training.
Where's that
you
at?
do Army for a whole month, and It's not fun. It was hot down in Louisiana, and
Oh, you were in
there's
Fort
sleeping
Polk,
around.
weren't you?
Didn't have tents or anything like that. What was that?
You were in Fort Polk, weren't you?
At Fort Polk, Louisiana.
Yeah, I did some training down there. No, there's nothing fun about that.
I was at Fort Polk a
Wasn't a lot of
couple of
fun.
times too.
But being able to come back and our command has been really good about giving us multiple 4-day weekends, and so we kind of make up for some of that, and that's been pretty good. So yeah, I think the family's doing well. They're adjusting to Army life really well. We've been here 10 months. We've been in the Army for 14 months now, and all the kids are doing great. Lauren is doing great. She got a job as a library here, so she's working in her field now, which is great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that a job in town or at the post library?
It's at the post library. Yeah, so it's here on post, and she's enjoying that. So everything is going pretty well.
Did I understand?
Of course, my call as well, and she just feels like she's here and we're here to fulfill this ministry together.
Did you recently do some training in New York?
I did go to New York, yeah. So we had some strategic leadership development course for chaplains. It was a course on teaching chaplains how to think strategically at higher echelons, higher ranks. The chaplain corps doesn't really have a process to help chaplains think more strategically. Battalion commanders, XOs, other branches, they get that training throughout their in different various ways, but the chaplain corps really doesn't have anything like that. So they're trying to implement this new program where they can take us out of our context, out of the Army context, be trained by civilians and local pastors and people who are thinking strategically in ways to connect with locals in New York City, which is very diverse and has lots of challenges, just like the Army. So that's why we went up to New York City, and there was some time off. We got to see the sights and stuff. Family didn't get to come with, so it was just me up there. But
Wow.
Good training, and we're gonna be able to put those skills to use with we got to come up with a white paper now. So the Army expects something out of this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Write
You don't-
500 words.
You don't get anything free in the Army.
Otherwise, Doug's counterparts will come find you and ask you questions.
And then we think you were just partying. that there was some training because I'm sure there was a reason for New York, because sometimes you had to justify if you're going to a nice touristy place, and we got rejected for a couple of our conferences in a couple of places because they said no, there's no reason to go there, and it's too touristy.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because people got in trouble for it.
So I'll give you a question to think about before the break, and that is, at what point in time do you get to put in a request of where you want to go next in the Army? If you're transferred somewhere, or a post, or training, do you get to do that soon? And when would you find out whether you get to go to that awesome base in Hawaii or wherever? When we come right back. Welcome back to the third chair. That is Christmas Doug. I am New Year's Peter, and we have Captain Jeremy Spain with us. Jeremy, I have a friend who was a colonel, a dentist in the Army. He applied for a post in Germany. He went there for a long time. He absolutely loved it. It was like the highlight of his Army career. He happened to speak German, so I think that was part of why he got it. But him and his wife and his kids loved Germany and all the places they could go by choo-choo train. Where have you applied, or when will you get to apply where you would be stationed next?
Yeah, so I think it depends on several factors, but normally a first-term chaplain is going to be at his first duty station for about 3 years. So I've been here for about 10 months, so we're looking at probably right around January 2024, somewhere between January, February 2024. That's when I'll be able to put in for my next duty assignment. So usually the Chaplain Corps has it set up differently than the rest of the Army, where the Chaplain Corps dictates where chaplains go. And so I'll talk to personnel, and they'll say, okay, where do you want to go? And I'll be like, well, these 3 places sound really great. And they're like, well, great. Well, we need you actually here. So this is where you're going.
Yes, you applied for Italy, Germany, and Hawaii, and you were sent back to North Dakota.
There's no Army post in North Dakota.
That's telling you something.
They might get it a little bit closer to that. So you mentioned 3 overseas places, right? So they might send you to Alaska.
Oh, man.
I wanted to go overseas. We'll send you to Alaska.
Yeah, it's like overseas. You can see Germany, you can see Russia from there. Oh,
man.
Yeah,
it'd be even worse, though, if you got sent to Korea, because could you bring your family along over there?
If I got sent to Korea, it wouldn't be, if it was a 2-year deployment, yeah, I could go to Korea. There might be a possibility where sometimes you go for a year, then your family usually doesn't come.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it depends on where you're stationed, how close to North Korea.
Oh,
the DMZ.
The DMZ. Okay.
Before you've mentioned that, at least in past when we've talked, the possibility of perhaps doing some sort of training, clinical training as a counselor, like in a hospital or a VA hospital. Would you be eligible to enroll in that type of training soon, or is that something more that the higher-ups say, Captain Jeremy, we are now sending you to that? How does that work?
Yeah. So the Army has a great program where they usually send maybe senior captains, and for chaplains, it's just as majors. But they'll send you to do further graduate work at various places. All branches do that, but for the Chaplain Corps, that usually happens when you make major. So there's a couple options for chaplains that that you can get. You can go be an ethics or get another ethics degree and teach ethics for some of the schoolhouses. You can go and get a homiletics degree and teach preaching to chaplains coming in at Chabolik. You can go and get a marriage and family therapy degree and be a family life chaplain, where then you would just primarily, like, your ministry is counseling then, and people come to you and you counsel them. Mm-hmm. Usually each post has 1 or 2 family life chaplains that you would handle all of the major issues there, or another primary function of the family life chaplain is to teach other chaplains on how to be better counselors. Many may not know this, but Army or the chaplain, most pastors, unless they have a concentration in counseling, maybe only have 1, 2, or a handful of counseling classes. They're not actually trained counselors. But when we come into the Army, we're expected to be like subject matter experts in counseling. So, people will come to us and want counseling. I had 1 class in seminary, so and then some coursework done at Chabolik. So I do rely a lot on the family and life counselor to actually help train me up and teach me different things. But that would be the thing that I'd want to do, is become a family life chaplain. Like, that really speaks to me. I love being able to counsel people and help them find ways to improve their thinking or their behavior or improve their relationships with their spouses and kids. So that would be what I would want to pursue. But that's when I become a major, right? So that's 8 to 10 years down the road.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize it'd be so long.
Army pays for it fully, and I would have to probably, usually the Army wants something back in return, right? So they might send you to school, but then you got to stay in for an additional 3 years, so that way they get their money's worth out of you.
Take a pound of flesh.
Yes, yes. But you get paid as a major to go through this school for 18 months, and that's all you do. Is you're just getting paid to go to school. So not only does the Army pay for it, but you're getting your full-time salary too. So I mean, that's pretty nice.
That is pretty nice. Would you still, under those circumstances, still have to do some sort of weekend drilling or?
No, I don't think so.
Wow.
I knew this captain. He went to school, and he didn't have to do anything. He was there in civilian clothes like a regular student.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the other things that I wanted to mention too is that the Army Chaplain Corps does have a CPE program, which is the Clinical Pastoral Education Program. And usually you can pick up that to do, I think, a residency after your first tour. If you don't get it then, you have one more chance to pick it up, I think, right around major. And then if you don't get it then, you don't get another opportunity. But that'll be a way for you to get some of that clinical experience.
Sure.
That could be something that I would want to pick up, but it's not a pressing need for me. I kind of like doing just regular soldier ministry. I don't know if I want to necessarily be in a hospital. That's a little bit different.
Sure. Well, especially if it's wounded soldiers from combat, that might be a sort of a different niche too. Go ahead.
Yeah, it would be.
So Jeremy, years ago I was at Fort Campbell and I went to the land between the lakes. Have you taken your family up there yet?
Oh, land between the lakes? Yeah, we've been up there several times. Yeah, it's a beautiful area. I tell you though, nothing compares with Colorado Springs.
Yeah, it's nice.
Did you go up there? Used to be a restaurant that had like big pork chops, and they had a great recipe, and then they had mile-high pies. Have you gone to that or heard about it?
No, we haven't eaten much up there, other than just bringing like a picnic with us.
Yeah, okay. I don't know. We were there for one time for just a couple of weeks, and we went on Saturday to go there. They said, you got to go to this place. So I don't know if it's still there, because that was like 20 years ago. But I always remember, like, I want to go back there and get those pork chops and that Mile High Pie again. So, what else have you found to do besides land between the lakes and Fort Campbell area?
Yeah, we haven't really explored much, right? There's not a lot of hiking and outdoor stuff like there was in Colorado Springs.
Oh yeah,
so
this
we
great
lament
area.
some of that. We're grieving still, having moved from Colorado Springs. But what we do as a family, we don't go out much. I won't lie. We don't go out much. We're homebodies. Spend time at home, play games, board games. One of my love languages is quality time. So spending time with my family is important to me. Whatever we might be doing is fine, as long as we're spending quality time. So I just enjoy hanging out with them. So whether that's playing some video games on a game controller or playing a board game, watching movies, we just spend time together.
Hanging with the family. That's nice, though.
We haven't done much fishing. We've gone up to land between the lakes a few times. Nashville's pretty close. We've gone down there a few times. We haven't gotten out to we haven't gotten out to the Great Smoky Mountains yet. But I was going to say something about holy smokes, My thinking was like, man, I'll use a cigar. I wonder if I can get one in after this event tonight.
Yeah. My wife and My wife and I honeymooned in the Smoky Mountains.
With that?
My wife and I honeymooned in the Smoky Mountains.
Yeah, we did too. Yeah, me and Lauren did too. I don't know if you know that, but we.
No, I didn't know
No,
that.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yep. We're coming up on our 15-year anniversary. We're thinking about getting the same cabin that we stayed in for our anniversary.
I assume you won't have the kids with you.
Well, we're not going to do it this year. We're actually going to Disney World.
Oh, gotcha.
Okay,
Our
well,
kids got into the Army a year and a half ago that we'd go to Disney World. So this is our trip finally.
Sounds good.
we'll talk about Disney World in just a moment.
Hi, I'm Peter from Pikes Peak Recovery Coaching, and as you know, I do help people with drug and alcohol recovery issues. I love to help people get better, but I also offer a variety of other services, including regular life coaching services. I've helped several people write and finish a book. I've helped a doctor that was in medical school graduate and then get into a residency. And I also actually have quite a background in mathematics, and I do some math tutoring for the GED as well as the ASVAB for those that are thinking about a career in the military. So my contact information is on the screen. Please send me an email or a text, and we can talk about some of these services and how I can help. That's Peter Grigg at Pikes Peak Recovery Coaching. Welcome back to the third chair. I'm Peter. That is Christmas Doug. And we are with Captain Jeremy Spain. And we're just together for a few more minutes on this episode. And so Doug asked him during the break if there was any sort of burning desire or final thoughts he wanted to leave us with. And so go ahead, Jeremy.
Yeah, well, thanks, guys, again for having me on the last two, this episode and the last one last week. I'm just so grateful for this time to speak with you guys and to reconnect. I really do miss hanging out with you guys, and I'm glad you guys are. I guess the last thing that I would really like to just speak to is one of the things that I hadn't mentioned either last week or this week is this idea of spirituality. And what is spirituality? Spirituality, as what the Army defines it as, is it's one's purpose, core values, beliefs, identity, and life vision. It further states that these elements, which define the essence of a person, enable one to build inner strength, make meaning of experiences, behave ethically, persevere through challenges, and be resilient when faced with adversity. One of the most challenging circumstances we can ever face is just the reality of suffering, right? And if we're to be resilient when we suffer, we must be spiritually ready. Where does our spirituality can come from? It can draw upon personal, philosophical, psychological, and religious teachings and forms and bases of character. I'm reading something here because it says it so well. But, going back to that idea of spirituality, not religion. Religion's different. And I often have to tell guys that in the Army, I'm of the Christian religion, but I'm here to help you find your spirituality, the deeper reason for existence and for your purpose and what you believe in and your identity. And so many people are lost today, and because they've lost sense of their purpose or their core values or what their real beliefs are or their identity or even having a sense of life vision. And so I just want to encourage your viewership, those who watch this, to find out, spend some time over the next few weeks in the new year reflecting on these things that make them who they are, to reconnect with those things, to find that deeper sense, that deeper spirituality on who they are. Now, I believe that comes from God. And as a Christian, I believe that comes from the Christian God. But I'm not here to promote any one religion. I do think that we can all find a sense of purpose when we reflect on those deeper issues that we all have. So that'd be my encouragement for them. And my prayer is that they will find the reason to keep on keeping on and find joy in the midst of it all.
And I understand that the Army is still looking for chaplains.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, yeah. So the chaplain corps could always use some great pastors of any faith who want to join, especially if you're a low density faith group, Jewish, Muslim, Roman Catholic, and especially if you're a female. It is heavily dominated by white Southern Baptist men. So, if you were outside of that denomination and that skin color and that sex, hey, the chaplain corps needs you.
What was that word you used again? Low density?
No,
Oh.
but
Oh, I thought you were talking about the word sex, Peter. Well, I'll explain that to you later.
No, I low density something. I was thinking, that's what my teenage kids say about me. Dad, you're kind of low density.
No, they say you're dense. That's different.
Jeremy, thank you again so much. And please, people, watch, like, subscribe, share, and hit the notification bell icon so you know when we've uploaded another episode. Jeremy, we're so grateful you took the time. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you
to see
so
us.
much for your words of wisdom.
thank you guys. I appreciate you both.
I appreciate you too. Miss you, brother. We'll see you next time.